Chapter 8. An Ear-Splitting Encounter. The slaves and slave drivers kept slowly pushing down the trail, hoping to sneak through the territory of the infamous squawks and avoid being eaten. Ruuna seemed brave, yet she would squeak and twitch with each new sound that reached her ears. Quint noticed the behavior, and being unable to control himself, he snickered quietly under his breath.
Ha! You'll have to be steadier than that if you want to be good and tough like me.
A large flinch gripped him like a vice after Tib released a mock imitation of the screech from before. Ruuna tried to hold back a giggle, but seeing Quint's chattering teeth caused Ruuna to double over in subdued laughter.
Looks like you're no better, eh?
Quint straightened himself, then turned to glare at the mocker with contempt, only to be met with Tib's devious smile. The young rat stuck out his tongue and pulled at his eye to taunt his new foe, only to have his gaze blocked by a furry mass. As he looked up, Quint realized that it was Stub, with an expression of horror covering his visage. Quint turned to match Stub's gaze, only to dreadfully freeze in place like a statue. There, in front of him, stood the tall figure of a bird, clad in a mix of both metallic and natural wood armors. The figure commanded fear as it brandished its talons and beak viciously. Quint tried to rip his eyes from the incredulous spectacle, but he was unable. Only quivering and spluttering in a squeaky voice seemed to be all he could muster.
Ruuna, there's a...
I know, Quint. They're surrounding us.
Quiet! And keep still, the lot of you. There's only a few of them. Mayhaps we can strike a deal with them.
Slagg voiced deviously, but even as he was still talking, more and more seemed to pour out from behind the brush, surrounding them from every conceivable angle. Seeing this caused Slagg to second-guess himself. Still, he pushed forward and out from the protection of the group. A loud squawk stopped him in his track, planting him still like a sculpture in the earth. There was a delayed moment that passed before Slagg began speaking.
we mean no harm. We're just passing through, you see?
Silence, beast! We do not take kindly to trespassers.
The voice that boomed and echoed forth was loud and resolute, as if a king had commanded judgment, causing Slagg to lose his confidence.
Who's this I'm speaking to?
You speak to the birds of heaven and lord of this land, King Starliff the First.
Another voice announced. Slagg looked down to see a shadow that swooped past, as the rest of the creatures stared up to see the silhouette of the giant bird it belonged to, his form gracefully sinking down to land, where the surrounded creatures were halted. He swooped, flapped, and landed gracefully just in front of Slagg, causing the unaware gopher to tumble and fall backwards onto his rump with a loud thump and a wheeze. When Slagg finally looked up, he saw the tall stature of a bird, bigger than the rest, fully clad in a cape and complete with lightweight armors, with shining bits and pieces of gold, pearls, and other jewelry covering his feathers, plumage, and crest. He was truly a sight to behold.
What art thy mission, trespassing through the land of the starlings, and with the young ones and babes no less? Surely they aren't your own.
Slagg was lost for words at the accusation. He felt as if he were gripped by the very captain himself, even though he was some days' travel away. Cecil thought quickly on the remark, and gave a reply before Slagg could.
Prithee, sir, we are lost. We are good creatures, each with our own family and home. Take pity on us. We mean you no harm.
Quiet, you. What he means to say is that, oh, yes, I and my wonderful relatives are humble traders, traveling from the northern seas. Yes.
Slagg lied and asserted as he desperately struggled to recover the situation. He held Cecil dangerously close, playing that he might be his son, as he pulled a shallow bow as if to appease the bird with mock respect. The large black bird scoffed impatiently as he eyed each of these shuddering creatures.
And we bring with us peace and goodwill. Ain't that right, mates?
Each of the three weasels gulped hard before nodding dumbly, trying desperately to confirm Slagg's story despite their obviously Vermorian tribal clothing. But King Starliff seemed indifferent to them all. In his eyes, they were all trespassing on his land.
Silence!
The bird's voice boomed and echoed throughout the valley, putting a halt to the slavers' antics.
I will not put up with those trespassing on royal ground. There will not be made a deal, as there can be no deal made to the one who owns all which is stood upon. I own this land, and thus I own all you are and have. Surrender thyselves to the service of your lord.
No beast seemed to like what King Starliff had claimed. None except his followers, of course. Ruuna noticed that Slagg had drawn his weapon and hidden it behind his back. In a quiet manner, she lightly nudged Belle.
The knife! Look!
Belle had already seen the drawn weapon and had quickly strung together a strategy. Holding her companion's paw tight, she whispered her intent, too low for anyone else to hear.
I see it. On my mark, get ready to run for the forest. Don't stop, not for anything.
What about Cecil? Slagg has him held there with him.
Now losing his patience, Slagg's voice had cut through the air with his indignant rage aimed at the birds as he dropped his act.
I am no beast slave. I am called Slagg Rouskin, pirate of the seas and first mate to Captain Skoglar, Cornelia, and you will treat me as such. Else you'll find out what a good skinning knife tastes like.
Taking a step forward, he brandished his blade, swinging it wildly, only a breath hair away from the starling soldier.
Attention! Ready your weapons!
The loud voice of the guard ordered, and with that, every starling assumed a fighting stance, ready for battle. Now it seemed that no beast would escape unscathed. Suddenly, in a great bout of pain, Slagg dropped his skinning knife, yelling painfully as Cecil bit deep into the dirty paw that held him uncomfortably close to his enemy. This caused Redclaw and Scratchnose to guard their leader from the starling soldiers, who were now upon them like a swarm of locusts. Cecil held tight as he was shoved hard by Slagg's free paw, only letting go after a well-thrown rock struck Slagg at his side. Ruuna had been the one to throw it, aiming to protect her vole friend, and now Slagg knew it well. He scrambled up as he stirred in the direction toward her, only having his path cut short by another starling soldier that landed swiftly, readying himself for a duel with the gopher. Now the starling army was in full flight as they surrounded the woodland creatures like a wide fishing net.
Now?
Ruuna asked anxiously.
Hold on. Patience.
Belle answered cautiously, waiting for the right moment. With voices like howling winds, all the starlings began screeching their war song, planting the small prisoners still from the enormous sound. How would any get free from this encounter now, Ruuna thought. On the top deck of the fola, the stolen and repurposed transport vessel, the main crews of the ship were battening down hatches and supply barrels, abiding to Skoglar's commands. Each creature worked in full effort, not wanting to find out what the maddened Skoglar was capable of. His voice raised over the creaking and groaning of the ship, and even the very roar of the tempestuous seas. His gravelly tone boomed in every creature's ear.
Right! Get those supplies and cargo moved to port side, and get those sails headed north! We be making a heading change due southward. I have me a date with an old shipmate waiting at Dolphin's Cove.
Ropes sprung taut and rigging clattered as Reuben commanded the rats to the masts and spars overhead. He and a few others took the deck rigging and began setting the positions of the sails for the new heading southward.
But Captain, shouldn't we set sail for North Isle again?
No beast was dumb enough to question the captain whilst he was in his element. No beast, say, for the poor rat, who wasn't as bright nor as fearful as the rest. But Skoglar wasn't in the mood for such balderdash.
Who is it that be speaking more than they be working?
The rat who had asked the question before now approached the foul-tempered Viking marmot captain and introduced himself in full ignorant importance.
'Twas I, Captain, Nicodemus, cleaner of the rails and the sails and the fish and the anchors and the poop deck and...
Skoglar, growing ever more impatient, now had the rat gripped by the collar of his dark red tunic, and with intense, crazed eyes snarled at his unfortunate foe, about ready to toss him overboard.
Well, who's about to make you the cleaner of the seas for talking more than you're worth, you useless rat?
Now, hold on there, mate. No need throwing good paws overboard.
The voice that was voluble, firm, yet calm, barely put a stop to Skoglar's rage-ridden plight, quickly bringing the attention to himself instead.
And who be this new voice now?
It be I, Brian, helper to the cook.
Brian introduced as he approached through the horde of rats.
Oh, is that so? And why would I listen to such a pitiful mouse, huh? Speak up!
'Cause you'd be thrown away a perfectly good galley man. The old cook's just kicked the bucket, see?
Skoglar was taken aback at that statement. How could the cook, a rat alive and well not only but a few days ago, be suddenly deceased?
Deed? What happened to him?
I dunno. Last I checked this morning, he was right as rain. As I went in to help with the evening victuals, he was laying against the wall, all limp and such.
Skoglar stared hard at the short-statured mouse, deciding whether or not to believe his story.
Oi, Stick Eye! Take your brother and go see if what he says is true.
And I, sir?
You be staying here with me to answer some queries.
Observing that the two rats he had commanded had not yet made fleet of foot, Skoglar stared hard as he gave his new charge.
Well, what are you moping about here for? Get your hide to the galley! Go on!
Yes, Captain.
Hi, Captain.
Shut your blubbering mouth! I said it, so you don't have to.
I want to. Ouch! That hurt!
Shut your trap! I'm the one to speak, not you!
Oh, fine. I can say things too. Don't! Hey! Quit that!
Both rats, rambling, trailed off as they fought each other towards the galley.
Those two are equaling a big bucket of putrid chum, I swear. Right. First, what makes you think this one's got the guts to handle being a galleyman? Eh?
Brian didn't take long to answer the pirate's question, giving a solid and strong tone in his voice.
Well, sir, I know all the cook rat's recipes and a few of my own. He would also help to keep the galley twice as clean as before, and I hear he's a loud one. This would surely keep him out of your ear.
Hey, so let me understand you better. Ye take the place of the cook, and he'd be your assistant. Is that right, matey?
Brian nodded twice as Skoglar leaned down to glare at him up and down, looking for any sign of jesting. He didn't seem to find any. For a moment, he stared back and forth between the nerve-racked rat and the steady diminutive mouse, straightening his slouched posture as if to ponder the idea. Suddenly he began to chuckle at the thought, and soon he was in full laughter as he mocked the mouse.
Oh, this be a brilliant idea, this! If I were to be stupid, be I stupid to ye, mates?
There was a moment of silence as the hoard paused to stare at Skoglar dumbly, wondering if he was looking for an honest answer or not.
Well, what are you scallywags standing round for? Get your grimy tails back to work, all of ye!
Skoglar's mood didn't seem to improve any. In fact, he seemed fouler than before, snarling now and snapping at anyone who crossed him. It was an uncomfortably quiet few minutes as the few creatures waited for the arrival of Stink Eye and his brother to return with news. Finally, as if the ship was on fire, the two rats scrambled and stumbled over themselves up to their captain. Bearing the news of the cook, they stammered over each other as they spoke.
What the mouse says is true!
He's dead!
We found him laying there without a lick of blood to see!
Against the wall near the stove!
What if it's poison, Captain?
Skoglar's mug had turned a whole new shade of bright red at that statement. Not knowing where he would vent his rage, Brian spoke up.
It's not poison, mates. I do know what it is, though. If you leave me in charge of the galley, I'll make sure it doesn't reach your crews.
None! I'm not leaving a puny mouse in charge of my galley! And if ye want to be a living beast to see the morrow, then ye be listening to me command! Aye!
Skoglar pointed with his dirty, black-nailed, ringed paw towards the rat.
Ye'll be in charge of the galley! The mouse'll be your helper as before! Now ye all get back to your jobs and quiet your yapping!
Skoglar brought his attention to Stink Eye again and gave way to another command as the rat, who was previously about to be thrown overboard, straightened his posture, saluting to his captain. With genuine excitement, he began thanking Brian for his help as the two took their leave.
Thank you, Mouse. I'd have been a dead rat if not for you.
Right. You're welcome, but if we want to keep our lives...
Shh. Brian put a single-fingered paw over his lips, indicating the rat to keep quiet. They began making their way to the galley to prepare that evening's stew and biscuits, when Reuben, hanging from the mast above him, stopped Brian in his tracks a moment. Keeping his voice low so as not to draw attention to himself, he made himself look busy, as if he hadn't noticed Brian beneath him.
Tell me there's not a sickness aboard the ship.
What? No. Not that I'm aware of, anyway.
The look of deep concern Reuben had displayed shifted, now resembling that of confusion.
Where's the cook rat dead then?
Oh, I knew he'd kick that bucket sooner or later.
Oh? And why's that, matey?
Easy. He hated eating his fruits and veg.
Brian tried to hide his good-tempered grin, causing Reuben to relax some.
By the tooth. He died of scurvy, didn't he?
Brian nodded thrice in agreement, indicating all along how much he knew of the crew.
So what then are you going to do with that blabbermouth of a rat you saved?
Well, I'm thinking I can perhaps suggest a few ideas into that head of his, and get some better provisions for the rest of us.
Well, best keep your voice low about it then. Who knows what you'll do if you run us out of food.
You're right, mate. But even if you'd have to go fishing, I'll make good and sure to keep good creatures fed.
Reuben shook his head before answering.
You know, you're a good mouse there, Brian. Maybe even a saint.
No, not a saint. Just a farmer with his own family to return to.
The sea rat named Farthistle had noticed that Brian had remained stagnant beside the large round oak beam that served as the mast, wondering just what he was up to. he noticed that Ropeburn the otter was hanging above him from the spar of the lower sail, but reasoned that he had not seen the mouse, since the otter was not facing Brian. Looking around him as if to check if anyone else had seen Brian standing there, he gathered the courage to call Brian out, hoping not to receive the bad graces from Skoglar.
Here! Mouse! Get your hide off the deck, eh? We're going! Else the captain will have your tail!
Brian barely flinched, and began continuing his track to the galley after he heard the unwelcome voice behind him.
I'll see you again soon, Ropeburn.
Aye. Fortune be with you, Brian.
Skoglar had noticed the odd behavior, keeping his eye locked on the mouse as he shuffled back to the galley. The marmot grumbled aloud to Stink-Eye his thought.
Keep an eye open on them mice. Every last scurvy one. Don't let them out of your sight.
I am. But they can't go anywhere.
It matters not.
Skoglar snapped impatiently.
The sight of them troublemakers will cause trust within them. Then they'll retaliate. Now, you'll go and keep a good watch on them rowing slaves, especially them mice. Ain't that right, matey?
Skoglar now stared hard at the rat, his brow furrowed deep in high foul temper. Timidly, the gun rat found himself nodding dumbly in alignment with the command, though not without some skepticism. Saluting smartly, he wasted no time making for the rowing benches below deck, not wanting to test his captain's red-hot anger any further.